Well, hi, welcome once again, everybody, to promises to be another great show on Pick Your Politics. It's very important that we bring not only local candidates to you, statewide candidates, because after all, the big day is coming up very, very soon when everybody's got to get to the polls and you've got to vote, because it's going to make a big, big difference, not only in the state of Nevada, but nationwide. So please remember that. I'm your host, Dennis Silvers, along with my fantastic, I think that's what she told me to say this show, co-host Stephanie Phillips. And we've got another good show for you. You know, we've been talking about the last number of shows about the judicial system, not only throughout the state, but particularly here in Southern Nevada, in Clark County. And we've got a great, great guest for you that is running for such an office. And Stephanie and I have talked about it before, but judicial decisions, judicial candidates, what comes out of the courts really affects everybody, doesn't it?
It sure does. Everybody. And they don't really realize it, and they don't get a chance to get to know all the judicial candidates all the time. So this is really good to have a little show, interview, and they can get to know you.
Yeah, exactly, because everybody, I recognize this, for lieutenant governor or governor or secretary of state or whatever, but people kind of just glaze over judicial candidates, either because they don't have the interest or they don't know very much about it, and they go, well, how that's going to affect me? Well, it's going to affect you, and that's why we like bringing these people to you to get to know and to help you vet them a little bit. Anyway, sitting next to me is our guest, Jessica Goodey. Jessica is running as a candidate for judge in Las Vegas Justice Court in Department 6. She is a graduate right here at the UNLV Boyd School of Law. She is the managing partner of Goodey Injury Law right here in Las Vegas. So if you have you know who to call, Jessica.
Only for the next, 6 weeks.
Yeah, that's right. Until she takes the bet. All right, let's get this little order here in this podcast, and I've got this going. Jessica prides herself on having a thorough understanding of the law with the litigation, of course, that she's involved with. That is, of course, evidenced if you ever saw her success with her caseload in the courtroom. She wants to make the trial process along with move the process along, which it definitely needs to be. And as a judge, she wants to really help the lives of those across the community and help them with better interactions with the court system as a whole. So anyway, it's great having you here. We appreciate it. We know you're busy knocking on doors and going to events and phone calling and all of that stuff. So you're staying busy.
Yes, sir. All of those things. So Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And Stephanie, it's always good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
Let me start off and ask you this. The woman who was on the bench in Department 6 suddenly resigned, really without a specific reason. I'm sure you're well of that. How unusual is that? And do you think that her poor retention rate had anything to do with that, Jessica?
It's...
No, we're not speaking ill of anybody.
No.
It is what it is.
Of course. I know that the reason given was for Judge Kern to take care of her family, or some things had come up within her family. And so I truly wish her the best, and I hope that everything is okay with her family. So it's not necessarily unusual, but it's also not usual. It's kind of somewhere in the middle. Things come up and people need to, leave their jobs for various reasons. What goes on behind the scenes, of course, I can't speculate.
Yeah, well, that's true, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that, and I know that. Your background has been in injury law primarily. Do you think that there is one area of law that makes a person wanting to be on the bench better than another person that practices in another area of law?
I don't think that it's an issue of being better. And I think it's important to have a broad range of experience. And more than that, make sure you have experience in the court for which you're running, or handling the types of cases as an attorney that you would be deciding as a judge.
Good. I agree with that. That's well
What
said.
kind of cases in Department 6 are you going to be handling?
So Department 6 in Justice Court is currently one of 2 civil law departments in our Justice Court. And so what civil law means, for those that don't know, are it's cases where people or companies are suing other people or companies for money. And Justice Court is limited jurisdiction, so it's from $0 to $15,000. So it could be anything. It could be a car accident case. It could be a landlord-tenant dispute. It could be a breach of contract where a business's customer doesn't pay, or it could be your neighbor's tree falls into your backyard.
Yeah.
And have you been a judge before or served in that capacity at all?
I've not been an elected judge before. However, I've known probably for the last 4 or 5 years I wanted to be a judge, and so I wanted to make sure I had experience doing that and make sure that it was actually something I wanted to do. So about 4 years ago, I got appointed as an arbitrator in our 8th Judicial District Court. So in that position, I have been deciding civil cases up to $50,000.
Okay.
So bigger than what I would be deciding in the Justice Court. And then I also knew that as a Justice Court judge or even a District Court judge, I could potentially be dealing with criminal law cases. And so I don't have a ton of practice or experience practicing in criminal law. So I asked to be appointed to our Las Vegas Municipal Court alternate judge and our Justice Court Justice Pro Tem. So I have been working for about the last 3 years serving as a substitute judge over all criminal dockets.
Right.
So I wanted to make sure that I have that criminal law experience.
Right.
And so I've not been elected as a judge, but I have served as a judge in both civil and criminal capacities. And I'm the only one in the race that can say that.
We've asked this before, Stephanie. I know in Justice Court you hear a lot of multitudinous types of cases, small claims, DUI, child abuse, other type of things. So you've got to be fairly well-rounded, don't you, when you're up there?
Absolutely. And so the way that our justice court system works is we kind of have specialty tracks in our justice court system. So we have a couple of departments that are civil law cases, meaning they're handling those cases for money. And that's Department 6 is that one of those departments right now, which is why I'm running in that department, because that's where I've spent my career.
Right.
And then the other departments, we'll have a couple of departments handling the DUIs, and we'll have a couple of departments handling battery, domestic violence. And then we have some more other departments that handle just more general criminal caseloads. So it's good to have a wide-ranging practice area. And that's really what the substitute judge experience has given me, because I've presided over DUI trials, I've presided over battery, domestic violence. And in the civil realm, while I mostly focus on personal injury, I've handled just about everything under the sun in civil law, because when you run your own business, everybody comes to you, and if it's a friend or a family member or a referral from them, I'm not going to turn them away if it's something I can help them with.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but your opponent doesn't have any experience for this particular court, right?
He hasn't practiced, from my understanding, he hasn't practiced in this court in, I want to say, going on 7 years.
Okay.
He was previously appointed to the family court bench. He practiced in justice court before then, so before 2009. But based on court records, I think the most recent case I saw him in this court was in 2015.
Okay, that's a long time ago.
That is a long time ago.
So I wanted to ask you, as an attorney, the PayPal thing that is in the news, because you use PayPal on your website.
I do, and I'm afraid of what you're going to ask me, because I haven't looked at I saw the email come through.
I want to see if you have read the new terms and what you think of the whole thing, and then if you think that you're going to change that service.
So I saw the email come through that said change of terms and PayPal and updates to your account, and I haven't opened the email yet because I have been going from event to event to event to event. So now I'm nervous, and that's going to be the first thing I do as soon as we're done here is read that email.
Because we all know, I mean, you've heard about the $2,500 fine, right?
No.
Okay, so what's out there is that if you spread any kind of misinformation
I did
that
hear this.
they deem as misinformation, they can take $2,500
Ding you.
per incident
Right.
out of your bank account. So PayPal is claiming that verbiage was not intended to be in there and all this, and so people are canceling just all over the place by the thousands, and it's hurting them a whole lot. So anyway, I noticed that on your website when I was reading
My
last night.
donations do come through PayPal. Thankfully, I have not had $2,500 disappear from my bank account because I haven't spread any misinformation.
Well, it starts November 3rd. It goes into
Yeah.
effect.
Oh, there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
November 3rd.
So get it out of the way now.
so now I can say whatever I want.
Because I wanted you to tell me what it all meant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will have to do that, and I'll have to do. So the interesting thing about judicial candidates is I can't, and it's tough as a practicing attorney because I still give advice to my clients. But anytime I'm working in my campaign with my campaign hat on, I can't give advice or take any stances on the
Right,
legality
right.
or the impact of anything that could potentially come before me as a judge. So I can't tell you, but we can talk on an attorney-client basis.
Yeah, I like that. Jessica Goodey is our special guest here on Pick Your Politics. She is a candidate for Las Vegas Justice Court in Department 6. What, in your view, Jessica, and I think I already know the answer, but what, in your view, is the biggest problem, one of the biggest problem areas in our court system here in Clark County?
It's the time to get to trial and to verdict and the backlog of the system. And so the reason I ultimately decided to run for judge in this specific race is I did a trial in this department in August of 2020. We had been litigating for about a year. In justice court, it goes a little bit faster than it does in district court. So we finally get to trial. It was 3 hours from start to finish. It was just a bench trial, meaning the judge is the one making all of the rulings.
Right.
And the judge who was sitting at the time told me she would get me an answer shortly. Well, shortly turned out to be 6 months.
Wow.
6 months of my client just waiting on the judge to do her job. And so that's when I called my husband and I said, honey, I think it's time for me to stop just complaining about the situation. It's time to step up and try to be part of the solution. And so I said, I'm going to run for judge. And neither of us knew what that actually meant at the time, but here we are this many years later. So that is, I think, probably one of the biggest problems. And, you know,
For sure.
everybody's
sure.
familiar with the idea of a right to a speedy trial.
Right.
That happens in the criminal law context. But when we're talking about the civil law context, that's people's lives on hold.
Right.
You know, these are real decisions that's impacting people and their businesses and their families. And if you're waiting 6 months just to get a decision to know how to move forward, that's an incredibly long time. And so many things can happen. And if you're dealing with civil, that means you're either dealing with somebody owes you money or you potentially owe someone else money.
Right.
So all of your financial well-being is kind of tied up in that lawsuit. And so we need to get decisions out to people so they can move on with their life and get some sort of resolution.
I always thought the right to a speedy trial meant that the attorneys talk real fast.
Yes, no, that's not what they mean.
Depends on the attorney.
And on your website, I was reading also, it takes sometimes up to 3.5 years to get on calendar to have your trial heard.
So that's about the average time, and I think that was probably calculated pre-COVID. I haven't looked at what it is after COVID because there's still less cases were going to trial during COVID, and so that it's a multitude of problems, but part of that is just the backlog in the court, and each department can only hear one trial at a time. It's not like they can handle 6 or 7 or 8 trials all at the same time. And so, but part of it is we'll have weeks where there's no trial going forward in that department for a variety of reasons. But that is, 3.5 years is probably not all that long.
Can they add judges? I mean, what does it take to add more judges and departments so that you can get through some of these cases quicker?
To get more departments, depending on which level of court we're talking about, requires adding more people to our state or our county, actually. So in the Las Vegas Justice Court, we just got a new department in Department 16. And it's for Las Vegas, for every 100,001 people that we get that move into Las Vegas, that's when we get a new justice court department. And so we reached that, and I think Judge Susan Bauckham can tell you more because she was chief judge at the time. That happened. We met that number based on the 2020 census. So we got a we were able to get a new Justice Court department. However, because of the pandemic and the courts were shut down, we didn't add it until now. So that race was actually on the ballot in the June primary, and Judge-elect Nadia Wood is going to be filling that new department.
Okay.
That'd be nice if we could do the same thing with cops. Every 100,000 people in the valley, we get, 300 more cops or something,
And I've talked with the current sheriff and the sheriff-elect, and I think the issue right now is we have quite a few open hiring positions available.
Yes.
And I don't remember what the number is, and so I know that if you have any interest in being a cop, please apply, because they are. I will lead
They want
directly to you.
Yeah, they want you. No doubt about it. There's
I
no
wanted
doubt about
to
it.
ask about the disciplinary commission. Is that what it's called? There's judges that violate constitutional rights of litigants, and you hear, this and that in the different courts, a lot in family court. And it seems like that commission should be possibly more just citizens, not judges, not attorneys, because it's kind of like you're ruling your own people. So how does that become more effective with different people on that panel?
That is a $1 million question that I don't know the answer to. And so we have the Judicial Discipline Commission, and we also have a similar one for attorneys. And so I served on the state bar of the Board of Governors for the State Bar of Nevada. So it's basically the governing body for all attorneys here in Nevada. I did that from 2018 to 2020. And while I was there, I sat on a task force to review our disciplinary process for attorneys, because we had a lot of the same complaints that we, we're watching over ourselves, and how do we make sure that this is transparent and that we're being consistent and that we are ensuring public safety, and not public safety in the traditional sense that, attorneys are going out and committing horrific crimes, but it's that making sure that we are maintaining public trust in our court system. And so we studied our discipline system and compared it to other states, and ultimately the recommendation out of the task force was not to change anything just yet. I still have my concerns, and I think that I would like to see one that's more transparent, but that's not the way that the state bar is going right now. So
Judges have an incredible amount of discretion, and sometimes if people are on kind of a power trip, or they have that attitude about them, they're going to take advantage of litigants. And we've seen that, you hear about this stuff, and it just seems like that there should be something that could rein that in so that doesn't happen so often.
And I think that the solution to that is twofold. Is number one, if you do see a problem with a judge not fulfilling their duties, absolutely make the complaint to the Judicial Discipline Commission so they can do their investigation. The second part of it is, if you see a problem with a judge, speak with attorneys that you know and that you trust to find out who would be an appropriate candidate to run against them in the next coming election. Because really, truly, the only way we can get a judge out of office if they're not fulfilling their duties is by them not being reelected. And the only way that somebody is not reelected is if there's a good candidate challenging them in that next election.
No, that's
And a lot of times there's not. They're running unopposed. So that brings me to my next thing: remove or retain. Should that be brought back as to the legislature to come in? Because that seems like you can explain it to the people what that is and what your opinion of that is.
So I'm not allowed to have an opinion.
All right, well, never mind then.
Yeah, never mind.
Forget it.
So, and for your viewers, I'll fill that in a little bit. Stephanie, I know I've talked to you about this. So as judicial candidates and as judges, we have a certain set of ethical rules that apply to us that's in addition to any other ethical rules as candidates. And one of those rules is that we cannot take an opinion on things that could potentially come before us as judges. And the reason for that is my job as a judge is to decide based upon the facts of the case before me and the law, not what I think the law should be, not what I want it to be, not what it potentially could be, but what it is and how those facts that are before me apply. And so our current system is the election of judges. And so that, and I believe in elections. I believe in the power of the people. I understand the concerns with electing judges, especially going through this process. Yeah. It's difficult, and it's difficult for the voters. It's difficult for candidates. My name is on 1 million ballots, and try as I might, I cannot shake that many hands in the course of a year. And so I know that it's difficult for voters to get information about us,
right.
And that's compounded by the fact that we're not really allowed to have opinions on anything. So it's even more difficult to get a sense of who we are and whether we would be a good judge.
Is there a commonality of concern or questions that people ask you when you do events, when you meet people, when you're walking the neighborhood? You know, Jessica, can you fix this? What do you think about this? And, you know.
So I get a lot of questions, again, that I'm not allowed to answer.
Okay.
A lot of them are about my personal political beliefs or what I think about this law or how I would deal with this, factual scenario. And all of those questions I'm not allowed to answer. And so a lot of times, a lot of people are just happy to meet the candidate themselves, right. Because I think that if you have an opportunity to speak with me, you can get a pretty good indication of what my judicial temperament is going to be. Am I going to be fair? Am I going to be impartial? Am I going to treat you with kindness, dignity, and respect? If you come into the...
Only your husband can answer that.
He's out on the campaign trail with me a lot.
Let's pull him in.
Right? I did not bring him today.
What does he do, by the way?
He's also an attorney.
Oh, he is. Okay.
He's an attorney, and he's been incredibly supportive throughout this process. So a lot of times if I only have one event for the night, he's there with me. If I have multiple events that night, he's at one while I'm at the other.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Tag team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am truly blessed that he's been so supportive throughout this process.
Yeah.
So what do you do when you see somebody in court that comes before you and you know them and you know them really well? What do you do?
So if it becomes if I know them well enough that it becomes a conflict of interest, I absolutely have to recuse myself.
Okay.
If it's something where, I've met them out on the campaign trail, we've had a couple of conversations, or we've been at the same lunch table or something like that, or if I know for a fact that they've donated to my campaign, because that's the other question I get a lot. My obligation, or the way that I view my obligation, is I need to disclose that to all parties, and if one of the sides feels uncomfortable, I need to recuse.
Right.
So if I don't think it's a close enough relationship that I feel that the automatic need to recuse, I feel that I need to disclose it to the other parties. And if they tell me I'm uncomfortable with this, it feels a little bit wrong, say, okay, no problem, I'll recuse myself.
Yeah.
Because I think it's really important that judges uphold our ethical responsibilities. And part of those responsibilities are to make sure that there's never the appearance of impropriety.
Yeah.
And just the appearance of it is enough to call the entire proceeding into question. So if that's present, then I need to make sure I'm correcting that and making sure that that's not going to be an issue.
What do you think the best part about being on the bench is? I know it's personal for everybody, but
it is.
How do you see it?
It's an opportunity. I became an attorney because I wanted to help people. And I know that sounds super cliche and super cheesy, but the best parts of my day are when I get to help somebody who is going through something terrible in their life. No one ever comes into my office and says, Jessica, I had the best day ever. I can't wait to tell you about it. Right? If they're coming to see an attorney, something has went terribly wrong in their life. So as a small business owner, I run my own law practice. I can only handle so many cases. I can only take on so many clients. But I get to help all of them through that. And so the best part, when I've served in the judicial capacity, the best part is when I can help somebody, again, who's coming into court on one of their worst days, and help them through the process. Right. And I can't help them in the traditional way I do as an attorney, But again, I can make sure that they're treated with kindness, dignity, and respect. I can make sure that they are heard and that they are understood, and then make sure that they understand the process and understand what's happening, so that, you know, I've actually had people that I have had to remand into custody that they weren't terribly mad at me because they understood why I was doing what I was doing. They understood the proceedings. And I greet everybody with a good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am. How are you today? And just those little things to make sure people are treated like people and not just another number in the system or something like that. So any tiny little amount of brightness I can bring to a bad day in someone's life is
Helps.
good.
Yeah.
When you guys fill out your application to be on the ballot for the seat you're going to run for, do they research your background to see if there's complaints against any judges or any attorneys? I mean, they don't.
No, the only thing, so in justice court,
That's interesting.
in justice
You
court,
think
so you
that they
have to
would?
have 5 years of experience as an attorney.
Right.
Doing anything, you just need to have 5 years as licensed and pay $100 filing fee, and you're on the ballot. And
Wow.
they don't check to make sure that you've been an attorney for 5 years. You're stating under penalty of perjury, so you better be telling the truth.
Yeah.
And then it's up to your opponent to look and say, hey, no, she hasn't been practicing or he hasn't been practicing for 5 years, and file that complaint. For district court, it's 10 years. But no, that's it. It's you sign, say I've got 5 years. I live in Las
They
Vegas.
do that even for people from Illinois? She's from Illinois, by the way, folks. I just thought I'd throw that in.
I'm from a very small town in
of
Illinois.
course. But you're right in the middle. I love those commercials, Stephanie. Now, you're right in the middle of the country if you're in Illinois.
And it's funny, I am right smack in the middle. I grew up close to Springfield,
Did
kind
ya?
of in the middle of cornfields. I refuse to say I'm from Southern Illinois, although everyone from Chicago says I'm from the South. I am not. I am from Central Illinois.
Oh, my goodness.
Born and raised, small town Midwest girl. Some of those things, you can't beat that stuff out of me with a stick.
Yeah,
So.
no, I hear you.
So because of the discretion you have, because of the power that a judge has, do you think that you guys should undergo a psych evaluation before you're put on the ballot?
So again, that's one of the things it's not a current law. And again, I'm not allowed to have opinions about what I think should be law or shouldn't be law. It's not my job to make the law. I understand the concerns, and I encourage the voters to listen to interviews and talk to the candidates. And I encourage all of your listeners, reach out to me. If you have any questions or concerns, or you want to talk to me, reach out to me. My phone number is all over the internet. Send me an email. I'll get back to you. But you do want to make sure that your judicial candidate has the judicial temperament and the mental well-being to do what is a very difficult job. And again, that's why I appreciate this opportunity, because I think that in having this conversation, even though your viewers aren't necessarily a part of it, they can get a pretty good sense of who I am based on my conversation with you guys.
No, that's a very
Because a lot of people, they don't
good point.
they don't know about the events that you guys hold, and
Right.
you guys are at 3, 4, 5 a day sometimes, but people don't. And they don't have time, or they have little kids, so this is a really good way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, who's
let them-
running the office while you're out doing all of this stuff, having dinner and lunch and breakfast and walking and whatever?
I am, thank goodness for makeup, because I am operating on not enough sleep, because so campaigning is essentially a second full-time job. So
Oh,
after,
yeah, it's tough.
you guys are my 4th or 5th event today already, and then when I'm done here, I'm actually going to the office for probably about 8 or 9 hours to catch up.
Wow.
So
wow.
everybody always asks, am I ready for the workload of being a judge? And I can say I'm already doing it. So
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah. Do you have any events coming up that you want to share with people, that they could come meet you and get to know you a little bit? And also, campaigns aren't cheap, folks. She needs money, like all of the political candidates. So go to her website and throw her a few bucks. But
Even
do you have
if it
any
is through
things coming
PayPal.
up? And give your website address too, by the way, for everybody.
Absolutely. So I'm not hosting any events between now and the election. However, if you want to come out and meet me, I will be at early voting either at Desert Breeze Community Center or Sahara West Library pretty much every day of early voting and all day on election day. And if I'm not there, my husband or one of my friends or family will be there supporting me. So you can talk to me, reach out to me. My website is Jessica Goodey for Judge, and it's Goodey for FOR Judge spelled out. If you just Google Jessica Goodey, you'll find my website, you'll find my business website, you'll find all my social medias. There's a million ways to get in contact with me, and I absolutely encourage you to do that because I want to talk to you. It's great if you vote for me based off of just seeing my last name or seeing my picture on the side of the road, but I would rather earn your vote.
Well said.
Well, thanks for coming in. We're
you.
out of time, unfortunately, but you're going to make a great judge.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for coming.
Thank
Who
you
was
for
it
having
that
me.
sang "Goody Goody for You"? Goody Goody for me. There's a song like that. Did you ever get that?
No.
And I don't know who the heck sang the song, but there is
I
"Goody Goody
heard-
for Me." Yeah.
I when I was little, I heard Goody Two Shoes a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I was offended by that. Now I'm not. I'm like, yeah, I'm a good person. It's fine. No, I have not heard that song.
Yeah, well, okay, there you go. Just another useless thing. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Pick Your Politics. For Stephanie Phillips and for Jessica Goodey, I'm Dennis Silvers. And remember, vote, get out, vet your candidates, and get out and vote, folks. Folks, it's really, really important. So until next time, we'll see y'all back. So long.
See you later.
Bye.